Welcome to Matt's Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you, as always, for stopping by. It was such a pleasure yesterday to catch up with CNN's Eleni Giokos, and newly married as well. Congratulations to Eleni. We started talking many years ago when she was at CNBC, and she's done so remarkably well. She sat in for Richard Quest. It's such a joy to be interviewed by her, extremely fluent. Jumps all around, and it's really quite fun. So it was a pleasure catching up with her yesterday. I'd also like to thank His Excellency Bob Godek and the US Chamber for the invitation to speak yesterday about the Kenyan economy. I said a number of things, talking about how East Africa was a bright spot in Sub-Saharan Africa, talked about the election, talked about what I was thinking was a major trend change across the continent. It's non-linear in terms of the politics, the enfranchisement for the first time of that African demographic dividend, and how I thought, we can't predict which way that newly enfranchised group of people will go. Shilling, I said, was actually strong, not weak, and a number of other things. It was a pleasure. American tourists into Kenya outpaced British tourists for the first time ever, I learned, which was very interesting as well. And it seems to be more a question of British tourists going down than American tourists surging, was the impression I was left with. Well, Janet Yellen came and trumped Trump on the dollar. US Treasury yields rose after Yellen said waiting too long to begin moving towards the neutral rate could risk a nasty surprise down the road. Either too much inflation, financial instability, or both. I was talking about this on the 14th of November when I said I thought the quantitative easing consensus was a busted flush. A number of reasons for that, but essentially I think we're watching the normalization of interest rates now. Just bumped into the man who runs the biggest monetary experiment in history, the Bank of Japan's Kuroda. This is Holger, who I follow on Twitter. He's all smiles for a reason, tweets Holger. I agree with this, that a more lasting bottom is now in place for the pound. Technical analysts are suggesting. And if you think about the price action we saw over the last few sessions, it didn't spend long below 120. And I think it down 20% from just before Brexit. That's more than enough to take into account every permutation of risk that I can think of. And I think, the likelihood is that the pound becomes a safe haven. I know there's a history of it not being one, Dennis Healy and all of that kind of thing, George Soros. But in this case, I think, if the European Union starts to fracture, which I think is inevitable, predictable, and predictive, given the momentum right now, Geert Wilders is up next, then, the pound will rally. And I think you look at the pound on euro sterling particularly. At the end of last year, I was talking about an optimal portfolio, and I said it looks like it would contain a long sterling, short shilling position. Mexican peso, have a look at what's happened with that. As I said before, it sits at the bleeding edge of Trump's policies, and it got hit hard yesterday, and we'll get to that in a moment. Home thoughts, Sheryl Sandberg at WEF 17. She's Facebook. We believe in the future, she said. That took me back to Vinod Khosala's famous quote, "The future's not seen in the rear-view mirror." Vinod Khosala, who famously bagged a few $1 billion in Silicon Valley, was the fellow who said, "The future's not seen in the rear-view mirror." And I was incorporating that comment in a piece, but let me touch on what I was saying. I was talking about the demographic arc of instability outlined by these youthful populations covers all of Sub-Saharan Africa. Now I know the excitement about the demographic dividend is simply overwhelming, but remember this is a binary thing. The demographic dividend could easily morph into a time bomb. Charles Dickens said the following in his book, A tale of two cities. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times, it was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. We are all going direct to heaven, we are all going the other way. Put up a photograph of Vinod Khosla. My early mornings, and this I hadn't written down, but it's so beautiful because I dropped my daughter Hannah, who's 10, to the bus stop. We get into these conversations in the early morning about the sunrise, which tends to be extremely beautiful, particularly after full moon, and we both enjoy that. And I was thinking to myself, it's such a precious moment that I have, and I hold on to it. She can get quite cross and strict, and sometimes thinks that I could behave better. It finds me a little bit noisy, particularly around her school friends. But I've sort of had to fight back. I said to her, I remember a time many years ago when my mother said, Ali Khan, give me a kiss, give me a kiss. I was a little boy, about 10 or 11, and I refused. I was embarrassed. And I said, even now, Hannah, I remember that day. And I think I tend to sort of achieve my emotional objective of pressing the point that, she is the most precious thing in my life. Political reflections, goodness, I was kind of waking up in the middle of the night wondering what was going to happen with Jammeh. This is Jammeh's plane waiting on the tarmac in Banjul airport, ready to go. It's been there a week, apparently. That's Ruth McLean. Let's just jump to this Bloomberg Global Risk Index. And I saw that in an infographic. And of course, Kenya's right up there at the moment. I think, and I'll come to this again, the market's forward-looking, and particularly in the case of the stock market, as everything negative is baked in, probably get a little bit of a rally going, and it might start as early as today. Bloomberg, the biggest global risks for 2017, interesting as well. Banjul Airport is absolute chaos with miffed tourists everywhere. This is the Gambia Ruth McLean's photograph again. David Pilling, who writes for the FT, with biggest crisis in 22 years, Gambia State TV has its finger on the pulse. This was earlier, before the deadline expired. Then I saw this tweet, why do we put the in front of Gambia? The thing is, it's a good map there. You can see why it's completely surrounded. It's kind of in the middle of Senegal. Jeffrey Smith, who's been at the forefront and a cheerleader for democratic change, and I tend to agree with him. ECOWAS showing real leadership, not a SADC Zimbabwe redux. He's got a point. Then this photograph from Reuters, just left Dakar airport, that was last night, where West African leaders held crisis talks on the Gambia. Nobody commented, and the convoy sped off. And clearly, I think they're going to have some kind of ceremony. I'm not sure where it is. It's not going to be in Banjul, I don't think. And on the 12th of December, I wrote a piece about the political trend change that I was seeing. And I was saying, look, leadership might not move aside easily, case of Jammeh, but make no mistake, it's in the departure lounge. Might not move aside easily, it's in the departure lounge, and the open question is, will it leave first class, and the plane is still there obviously, coach, or be placed in shackles, placed at the back of the plane? The piece I wrote was quoting a quote from Martin Aglo after the Arab Spring. This is the Black Spring. He said that in 2014 on the occasion of the termination of beautiful Blaise Compaoré in the streets of Ouagadougou. After the Black Spring, he said, after the Arab Spring, this is the Black Spring. I also said that Africa is a very non-linear place, but recent elections are surely signalling a trend change is at hand. The demographic bulge is now arriving at voting age. This is that moment. Its importance cannot be gainsaid. Trump, this is a tweet he put out, writing my inaugural address at the Winter White House Mar-a-Lago 3 weeks ago, looking forward to Friday. On the 14th of November, on the occasion of his win, I wrote something. I said, Donald Trump won the US election, all ends up, and for the first time since 1928, won the presidential vote, the Senate, the House, and will decide the Supreme Court's composition. It's a breathtaking win, especially when you consider that Trump was an insurgent candidate and his Make America Great Again movement similarly an insurgent movement. Trump confounded the pollsters and the traditional media echo chamber and was ranked a rank outsider at 4-1 in a two-horse race just a few short hours before the final result was known. The result of the US mimicked the Brexit result, and what is clear to me is that we're watching a populist wave or zeitgeist which has now swept the United Kingdom and the US and as Italy, where Matteo Renzi has called for a referendum, which he lost, France, where Marine Le Pen is the most popular politician by a street, and the Netherlands, which is up next. And Geert Wilders is probably the strongest candidate in all those European situations. I quoted Beppe Grillo, co-founder of Five Star, who said this is the deflagration of an epoch. It's the apocalypse of the information system, of the TVs, of the big newspapers, of the intellectuals and of the journalists. And this is another point. Traditional media has lost its position of control. It's been upended by the internet, which allowed insurgent politics to broadcast over the top. And I was saying I thought there would be a trend change in the way the US engages with the rest of the world, which I said was an entirely sensible mid-course correction. Take Syria as an example. Trump has indicated, this was written on the 14th of November, that China is the main adversary, and it's difficult to understand why the US was seeking to send Vladimir into Xi Jinping's ready embrace. To triangulate China, the US needs Russia on its side, not on China's. Therefore, I see Trump playing a Ronald Reagan game, and he's already reached out to Putin to try and get some kind of nuclear disarmament deal. See where he's moving. From an economic and trade perspective, I expect Trump to be much more aggressive with China. We've seen that. And I said, I think the quantitative easing consensus is now a busted flat. Banking stocks, as I said previously, the banksters are back. Have a look at banking stocks and the rally since President Trump was voted in. Very interesting interview in Politico with Ben Rhodes, really previously described as having a mind meld with President Obama, and therefore you get deep insights into President Obama's thinking. What I take issue is that we were spinning. We believed in these things. I think they did. He said that he was asked what of the foreign policy legacy of the last 80 years, and Ben Rhodes says a single word I would apply is engagement. A lot of what we did was to restore the United States at the center of the international order. People have criticized us for presiding over a decline. I think we make the opposite argument, that we were in decline, that we, by both husbanding our resources, investing in our economy, and being opportunistic diplomatically, tried to set the United States up for being in a stronger position in a changing world than where we were and when we came in. I would say a couple of things. One, the Arab Spring obviously overwhelmed the circuits. There's an intensity in the period from 2011 to 2014 when a 100-year storm took place in 3 years. Two, there is a discordance between the nature of power in the current moment and how Washington thinks about foreign policy that you can only appreciate if you're in these jobs, he said. It's a very interesting interview. Take a look at it. Everything that I have learned about watching that conflict unfold suggests to me that the president's refusal to get into a military conflict with the Assad regime was actually one of his best decisions. I agree. What else is it? Very interesting. And then talking about how they felt that there was the prospect of impeachment if the president had intervened, apparently, which I did not know about. But it gives you good insight, and I tend to agree with what he's saying. It is essential you address on what basis any use of force would be legally justified and how the justification comports with the exclusive authority of congressional authorization under Article 1 of the Constitution, House Speaker John Boehner wrote to Obama in 2013. Going back to Ben Rhodes, the world order and American actions in the world of deep wiring, he says. We found that when we came into office, it took us a long time to turn the ocean liner around. A dust up with the Iranians or the Chinese could get out of hand very fast. Very interesting article in The Atlantic, the real meaning of Putin's press conference. He was asked, "You haven't yet commented on the report that allegedly we or in Russia have been collecting compromat on Donald Trump, including during his visit to Moscow, as if he were having fun with prostitutes in a Moscow hotel," said the reporter. "Is this true? Have you seen these files, these videos, these tapes?" Putin starts laughing. "You know," Putin said, "there's a category of people who leave without saying goodbye, out of respect for how things have come together, so as not to disturb anything. Then there are people who endlessly say goodbye. The departing US presidential administration, in my opinion, is in the second category." Then he tried to suppress a smirk. Classic Putin likes to keep people waiting in suspense whenever something big and important happens. Don't expect Putin to speak. For days, when pro-democracy protests broke out in Moscow in 2011, Putin was silent for more than a week. And he's talking about being a master bureaucrat and the salt of the earth guy. There's an impression, as if having practiced in Kiev, they want to organize a Maidan in Washington just to keep Trump from taking office, he said. Ooh, brutal. As I wrote on the 5th of December, I spoke of his parabolic rebound. October 2014, I called him a geopolitical grandmaster. In 2014, he was on the sharp end of some serious oil warfare from President Obama. So you can see tremendous recovery he made. Let's move on. US 10-year yield spiked higher after those Yellen comments. Take a look at the 10-year yield here. US trade weighted index gives you an idea of the dollar over the longer term. Let's have a look at the currency markets. Euro dollar 106.36, dollar index 101.26, Japanese yen 114.83, Swissy 100.69, the pound 122.58, got as high as 124, coming back again. You've got to look at it. If it goes back down below 120, it's a big buy, in my view. The Aussie 0.7525, India rupees 68.185, South Korean won 1176.51, Rial 323.17, Egyptian pound 18.8905, and the rand, as you know, I'm quite constructive about it this year, 1360. US President-elect Donald Trump's commerce pick said renegotiating NAFTA will be a priority, caned the Canadian dollar and the peso. Everything he said tends to confirm fears that a NAFTA repeal as early as next week is a distinct possibility, he said. Mexican peso fell 2%, Canadian dollar dropped 1.7%. Have a look at the charts. This is Wilbur Ross, Trump's appointing. Dollar index, I'll put up a one-year chart. As I said, key level to watch to the downside if you're bullish the dollar as I am is 99.50. Of course, things can change. We've got to change our mind overnight if something big drops from somewhere. Gold, 1201.66. It went a lot higher than I expected. I don't think it's going much higher from here. Crude oil, one-year chart, $52.20. Remember my $60 max call for 2017 WTI. Don't ask for wasabi or soy sauce. Late times are bad, but if there's one way to make a sushi chef go ballistic, at least internally, it's watching a customer mash a mound of wasabi in a pool of soy sauce and then dunk the sushi in it. Emerging markets, South Korea court denies arrest of Samsung heir J.Y. Lee. Sub-Saharan Africa death toll in Mali's suicide blast rises to at least 60. This was immediately after the visit of Francois Hollande. Sub-Saharan Africa, my piece was called Finding Opportunities in Disequilibrium. Please take a look. Citigroup is the top Africa loan arranger, sees M&A boosting lending. expects increased sovereign demand and mergers and acquisitions to drive lending in the region this year as low valuations spur deals. Lots of financing activities expected in 2017. A total of $34.3 billion in loans were arranged by borrowers in the region last year, according to data compiled by Bloomberg. Citigroup reclaimed its top position as the top loan arranger for the first time since 2008, edging out Standard Chartered, which held the top spot since 2011. Citigroup last year helped to arrange a total of $1 billion in loans for Africa's largest mobile operator, MTN, $666 million in lending to Steinhoff International Holdings of South Africa. Lending in Africa doesn't come up without risks. They're referring to Mozambique, which on Monday said it wouldn't honour a $59.8 million coupon payment on January the 18th, which would be Africa's first sovereign default in 5 years. In that piece I wrote in The Economist, I was saying counterintuitively, South Africa, with its entrenched institutions, looks significantly less politically risky than many other sub-Saharan African countries this year. The rand rallied 11% last year as investors started to factor in that Pravin Gordhan's fight back against rogue policymaking. Cause and effect was best witnessed around the time when David Van Rooyen gained control of the Treasury. Policymaking is a factor for investors, and in a low-growth environment, it will have an outsized impact on returns. South African all-share up 4.5% this year. That's a strong start. Dollar rand, let me put up a chart around 30 and 60 level. ShopRite wins as South Africans seek cheap food to beat inflation. Inflation rate has climbed to a 10-month high of 6.8% in December, led by surging food costs following the worst drought since at least 1904. Egyptian pound just below 1890. I was speaking to Reuters and I said the possibility of a devaluation is certain. The question is the timing. I was talking about the Nigerian naira. They are eventually going to capitulate at some point this year. A similar scenario to Egypt at the end of last year, big devaluation in the official rate, I said. And I just, in my comment, I said, if President Buhari thinks China is going to underwrite an overvalued naira, I think he is mistaken. Risk intelligence, another difficult year for Buhari, you can say that again. Nigerian all-share down 2.34% this year. On a purely linguistic analysis basis, I like the Ghana City and the Ghana Stock Exchange. I really like what the president's saying. Ghana Stock Exchange is up 2.89% this year. Mozambique won't blink first. There's a battle with bondholders heats up. $727 million worth of bonds due January 2023 fell to 55.35 cents on the dollar on Monday. Necomet has agreed a stake sale to fund $75 million, has agreed to sell a 25% stake to a foreign fund for $75 million, part of an effort to bolster its balance sheet and pay off debts. We are already at final stages with the investor. We are just waiting for the money to come, Atul Shah said. Deal is part of the chain's plan to overhaul its balance sheet, restructure a $75 million debt tranche owed to 4 local banks. Necomet is going through some financial stress. We are looking for funds and we are restructuring, he said. The equity deal with the foreign fund values the business at $300 million. It's a fair valuation, Mr. Shah said. Aden Mohammed, Nairobi listed among the most dynamic cities in the world by WEF. It's good to hear. Have a look at this from David Inglis. He was comparing the Cathay Pacific share price versus the worldwide airlines index. But I looked at that airlines index. That's been up pretty strong, isn't it? Kenya Airways, there's a link there. So hopefully we'll see some of that spill over. Atlas African Industries to gift new CEO 311 million shillings worth of shares for a role in gaming company. It's really a mind-boggling story. Started out as an oil and gas support services business. Now they're into gambling, and then they keep changing the value. It's quite extraordinary, but it's quite detailed. There's a lot of minutiae. The share price link is there as well. Kenya shilling at 104, 103.95. Nairobi All Share down 6.86% this year, turned 0.08% higher yesterday. Looking for some stabilization. It was the world's worst performing stock market this year. But when you get to that kind of level, then you know turnaround is at hand. My view is just about everything negative is now baked into the price. Baron Rothschild is credited with saying the time to buy is when there's blood in the streets. He should know. Rothschild made a fortune buying the panic that followed the Battle of Waterloo against Napoleon. The world's second wealthiest person, Warren Buffett, has warned you pay a very high price in the stock market for a cheery consensus. These kind of bearish conditions, it's important to pick your spots. Just buying the index is not an optimal strategy. We have witnessed serious divergence in price performance. It's therefore a more Darwinian environment. Nairobi NSE 20 turned 0.11% higher, but still is down 7.95% this year and at levels not seen since 2008. I shall leave you with that. Just say I do think it's overdue a bounce. It's very oversold. Once again, thank you.